Hello, welcome to the self-learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we start Unit 14, Communist Thought, M.N. Roy and E.M.S. Namboodiripad. And today we discuss E.M.S. Namboodiripad, the communist theoretician. Ernakulam Manakul Sankaran Namboodiripad 1909 to 1998 was one of the architects of United Kerala's renowned, brave and committed socialist, historian and Marxian theoretician who took an active part in the communist movement in India. He was born in Perinthial Manatulak of the present Malappuram district. His early years were associated with UT Bhartiyapad and many others. He became one of the office bearer of Yogastra Sabha, an organization of progressive youth. During his college days, he was associated with the Indian National Congress and the struggle for freedom. In 1934, he joined the Congress Socialist Party and was later elected as the Kerala State Congress Secretary. Namboodiripad was widely regarded as the most intellectually sophisticated politician who continued to be a major influence in the politics of Kerala and South India throughout the 1970s. The two principal CPM leaders, Jyoti Basu and Namboodiripad, are among the most highly regarded active political leaders in India. They dominated the party since the 1964 split from the CPI, and their prominence has attracted a highly competent younger group of the leaders. They belong to the CPM party, which is influenced by the former Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China. E.M.S. Namboodiripad belonged to the more militant wing of the Communist Party. He was deeply disturbed by the forcefully anti-Chinese foreign policy the Congress had adopted after the Sino-Indian border war in 1962 and by the Congress rule in overthrowing the CPI-led government in Kerala in 1959. E.M.S. Namboodiripad supports the idea that the Maoist notion of the peasant-based revolution was more relevant to the Indian situation than the worker-based ideas of Marx and Lenin. He remained committed to the socialist ideas, and his compassion towards the downtrodden working class made him join the ranks of the communists, for which he had to also go in hiding for many years. India achieved its independence in 1947 and the state of Kerala was formed in 1956. In 1957, E.M.S. Namboodiripad led the communists to victory in the first popular election in the state. Soon he introduced the Revolutionary Land Reforms Ordinance and the Education Bill, which actually caused the dismissal of his government. E.M.S. Namboodiripad has been a strong supporter of decentralization of power and resources and the Kerala literacy movement as well. E.M.S. Namboodiripad was described by the Frontline magazine as a thinker, history maker, the tallest communist leader India has seen: an anti-imperialist and freedom fighter, social reformer, writer, journalist, and theoretician. K.R. Narayanan, the then President of India, described him as a man of rare vision, acumen, and determination, a scholar, historian, and journalist. He was, above all, an educator of the people as well as their leaders. Interestingly, for the last several decades, he analyzed the socio-political scene from the firm rootedness of his intellectual position and enriched Indian political thought to his very last days. It was certainly, the CPI General Secretary Barden said, Namboodiripad ideology that shaped Kerala the way it is today. The thoughts and writings of EMS have influenced a generation of communists. We all have read EMS, we have listened to EMS, we have fought against EMS, we have rallied behind EMS, we have stood for EMS and stood against him. But we could never ignore EMS. As a true Marxist-Leninist, EMS Namboodiripad emancipated the ruler poor and the wages earners, keeping in view the particular Indian conditions. Land reforms were a great characteristic of EMS communist ideology. He got the land reforms by way of legislation and by strengthening the Kisan movement, which addressed itself to the problems concerning small landholders and agricultural laborers. For a person of his caliber, the growth of individual capital in India in general and Kerala in particular depended, as EMS Namboodiripad thought, on the growth of consciousness of the people in favor of material production. EMS Namboodiripad favored industrialization via the private sector. He said, because the possibility of industrialization through the public sector was not very bright in Kerala, so we brought the private sector from outside. Namboodiripad was a great communist theoretician who tried to relate the Marxian principle to the Indian realities. In the process, he made his own Marxist interpretation to the Indian situation, that he stood for the toiling masses, the rural laborers, and the exploited workers is a fact of history. But he, as a centralist of the Marxian ideology, favored the socio-economic changes in the peculiar Indian conditions existing then. In agriculture, his method was cooperativization. In industry, it was first the introduction of industrialization and thereafter its socialization. Namboodiripad, like a true Marxist, believed that Marxism was not a static ideology. Under different circumstances, its interpretations can be different, and for bringing about socio-economic changes, its strategy also differs in different conditions. That was why to take an out of the context instance, EMS Namboodiripad believed that after the developments in the former Soviet Union following the 1989 years, there could be no restoration of Soviet communism, and that communism would have to absorb significant postulates of other ideologies. The conflicting trends among various segments of the Communist Party in India were because of competing ideological influences from native and allied social structures. Analyzing it beautifully, Namboodiripad said, the conflict here was between an outdated descendant indigenous social system and a foreign social system that was being newly evolved. While on the one side, one section is eager to build a new society, another section is eager to protect its own land and the ancient customs and traditions characteristics of it. It is only through introducing the essence of modern society that came to the country through the foreigners and modernizing our society can we protect our country from attack by foreigners. Some of the leading members of Communist Party were in favor of having a common front with the Congress Party. G. Adhikari was of the view that in order to build a strong national democratic movement and to prevent disruption in the Communist Party, it was desirable to cooperate with the left-wing forces of the Congress Party. The decision regarding this was also taken up by the Vijayawada Congress of the party. The conference took a decision to develop an approach of struggle and unity which will enable the organization to unite the democratic forces. Following the parties of democratic opposition, Namboodiripad was not in favor of this line in politics. Commenting on Namboodiripad attitude, Adhikari said his bland subjective hatred for the leadership of the majority has led him to propound theories which serve as an alibi for the left opportunist line. Namboodiripad rejected the approach of people's democracy of the leftists. He said the origin and development of the inner party differences which have led to the split of the party should be traced not to the evil intentions, misdeeds of certain individual leaders, but to certain objective factors. A majority of the members of the CPIM were very much critical of the Congress government under Nehru for its decision to overthrow the Namboodiripad government in Kerala. According to Lenin, it would be a profound error to think that the revolutionary proletariat is capable of refusing to support the social revolutionaries and Menshevik against counter-revolution by way of revenge, so to speak, for the support they have given in smashing the Bolsheviks, in shooting down soldiers at the front, and in disarming the workers. First, this would be applying Philistine conception of morality to the proletariat. since for the good of the cause the proletariat will always support not only the vacillating petty bourgeois but also the big bourgeois. Secondly, and that is the important thing, is it would Philistine attempt to obscure the political substance of the situation by moralizing. There has been no consistent ideological approach among the leaders of both the communist parties CPI and CPIM regarding the merger of both these parties. Namboodiripad vacillating attitude created a lot of confusion. The old slogan of non-capitalist path of development as applied to India was abandoned by the CPI in its 14th Congress in Calcutta in 1989. It put emphasis on the anti-imperialist, anti-federal, and anti-monopoly approach of the party towards the contemporary issues. One also observes distinct divergent approaches by the left leaders in the CPIM on the international issues. For example, in the 13th Congress of CPIM in Thiruvananthapuram in 1989, Namboodiripad fully advocated the policies of the Mikhail Gorbachev administration, whereas another important leader, B.T. Ranade, was very critical of it. After having these references about Namboodiripad, it would be advisable to have a brief analysis of some of his ideas and attitudes regarding Marxist Leninist theory, Indian history, caste and politics in India, national integration and unity, and the like. Namboodiripad was one of the leading theoreticians and left leaders of the communist movement in India. His association with the left movement in the country over 4 decades was a blessing for the left and democratic movement. Let us have a brief overview of some of his ideas in our next lecture. Here we want to wind up this lecture and thank you so much for your attention.